So the number one way to heal is to make peace with each of your parents. Greetings everyone, it's Jordan Parker. Welcome back to my channel. By peace, I mean acceptance. The degree that you are able and willing to accept each of your parents as they are is the degree that you're going to be able to experience freedom, growth, and joy in your life. A lack of peace with your parents impacts you on all levels, but no place is it more important than your relationships. When you've established peace with each of your parents, you move out of victimhood and move towards responsibility, freedom, and power in your life. The hidden gem here is that peace with your parents ultimately allows you to take responsibility for yourself as a loving and kind parent with yourself. One of the reasons why I believe adulting is so hard is that there's a lot of unresolved pain as it relates to people's parents. So in our Western culture, our parents play an outsized role in our psyche. Never in history did we live in nuclear families. We always lived in tribes, and we had many masculine and feminine archetypes that impacted our well-being and our psyche. This dynamic has set up a situation where our parents are receiving too much blame for the issues and the challenges and the pain that we have. Because part of the journey of finding acceptance with your parents is accepting that really they were never set up to quite succeed. And part of our healing journey here is to take responsibility for the situation as an adult and move forward with the tools that we got. No matter where you are today as it relates to your relationship with your parents, you can take meaningful action starting now. And I'm going to share with you a few of those steps. So my journey as it relates to my parents took off meaningfully when I was around 28. That's when I started to feel a lot of anger and resentment, grief and pain. And I started to become aware of a lot of the storylines and the things that were getting in the way of me connecting, not just with my parents, but also their relationships in my life. And honestly, those first 2 years from 28 to 30 was a lot of anger. It was really me getting in touch with boundaries, how to meaningfully own them, how to set them, how to speak to them, and also just moving through those emotions and feelings. Fortunately, I was part of a men's group back then, and I had therapy as well, counseling support, and I was able to let go of a lot of that over those next several years. And organically, in my early 30s, I had the intuition to talk to my father. And I remember asking my dad to go to a park, and we went and sat on a bench, and I told him some things that were on my heart that I had never shared with him, and definitely cried. And it was mostly a very sweet, meaningful interaction. And my dad took it beautifully. And he, not only did he own and agree, so to speak, or accept what it is that I had to offer, but he also shared that he wished he had done the same with his father. And I remember something in my heart cracked open energetically. I'll never forget that. And in the next couple of years, I did have a few more conversations with my dad before he died when I was 34. But that one conversation took care of 80% of the work, so to speak. And I was so grateful to do that before he passed away. And as it relates to my mom, that has been even more challenging, and probably because the love is even deeper. And my mom will be watching this, so I'm going to be mindful here. That one really took off again when I was 28, and for the next 10 years, there were meaningful conversations, meaningful moments where I had things to express or share that it took a lot of courage to do. And probably I've never been so scared in my life. But I sat down to have those conversations and really deepen my connection with my mom, and it was and is so worth it. And for the past 3 or 4 years, I've had the best relationship I've ever had with my mom. And, you know, at the end of the day, what I can say is having one parent alive right now and one parent that's passed, you can still do this work if somebody has passed. But I wanted to share with you and give you a taste from my own experience that this is work I have meaningful firsthand experience with. And that also, over the years, I have helped dozens of people work on this directly. And I've seen the results, I've seen the transformation. And so I wanted to get into one of those tools that can be helpful in this situation. So one of the tools that I've used over the years to help a lot of people find acceptance with their parents is to write a letter. This is a letter that doesn't have to be long. You don't need to spend a lot of time on it. You don't even need to send it, but you got to write it. I would suggest setting a timer and spending no more than an hour and a half, maybe even an hour on it. This will make it time-bound, and it'll give you some confidence that you can dive into this, but you're not going to be there forever. It'll also help you get to the point, get to the heart of the matter. So the letter that I traditionally suggest that people do is 3 parts. The first part is gratitude. So starting the letter with things and ways of being that you were grateful for how this parent showed up. So let's just take your mother, for example. One of the powerful and empowering things about this section is your ability to step out of your story and your pain and set them aside for a moment and say, how did my mother show up in a way that actually was helpful, that actually was kind, that was motherly? And for some people that's going to be easy. You can think of a lot of things, and for some people it's going to be difficult. I invite you to really challenge yourself to find 1, 2, or 3 things that you can name that you're grateful for. For example, my mother provided food on the table, clothes on my back, a roof over my head. My mother gave me hugs. She told me that she loved me. She was present with me. She helped me with my homework. She walked me to school, so forth. The more specific that you can be, the better. And so do your best with this section, and it is a must. So the second part of this letter is to speak to all the needs that weren't met growing up. These were things that are basic, like affection or the desire to be heard, things like your homework or food, to things more like supporting you with your dreams or your identity and being around, being present. So this section is important because this is the area you're going to express how you feel about those things. Is there anger, rage, grief, disappointment, shame, all the uncomfortable and dark sides of emotions that maybe you've been carrying a long time as it relates to this parent? This is the time to name them, and this is the time to be very clear and honest in this section of the letter. You don't want to leave any stone unturned. That said, you also can be mindful that at a certain point, you've said enough. So finding that balance is important. The last part of the letter is, from this moment on, what kind of relationship do you want with this parent? And importantly, how are you willing to take responsibility to make that happen? So ideally, this is for situations where your parent's still alive, but it can still be done if they've passed. It's going to be more metaphoric and a little bit more intuitive, but it can be done. But for those of you writing a letter to a parent that's alive, this is really important. This is where you get to take a step forward as an adult and take responsibility from this moment forward, symbolically and literally, for the kind of relationship you want with this parent. No more pointing the finger. So this is a difficult section, but an important one. And it's your chance to declare what you want to create moving forward. So this is really about looking at your side of the street and taking responsibility for it and minding your own business while still staying in connection with them. On the other side of writing this letter is a lot of freedom and also a deeper connection with this parent. There are so many ways to approach finding acceptance as it relates to your parents and your relationship there. This is just one of them. If this particular one doesn't resonate, there's countless other ways to approach this. I mentioned in the beginning briefly, the goal here is not just your connection moving forward with your parents, but actually more importantly, your connection with yourself moving forward. because each of us internalize our caregivers. And when you transform it on the outside, it actually meaningfully works on the inside as well. And there is more willingness for each of us to take responsibility for our own lives as loving adults. And in a future video, I'll share a lot more about being your own parent. But for now, I hope that the sentiment here expressed, the example of a possible avenue in the form of the letter, and also the end goal of becoming your own loving, firm, and kind parent inspires you to take some form of action moving forward and take responsibility for this area of your life, which really impacts everything, in support of your joy, in support of more peace, and in support of your freedom. Thanks so much for watching today, and until next time.